I'm really pleased today to be introducing Professor Michelle Briggs, who has a joint appointment between the University of Manchester and Manchester Foundation Trust. And she's going to talk about the journey through her clinical academic career from the beginning to where she is now. So welcome, Michelle. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Jane. Thank you.
So could I just start by asking you why you became interested in a career in research? You could take us back.
Well, so I think it probably started in that my first degree is in chemistry. So I did a BSc in chemistry, and so as part of that, I did an undergraduate project, a lab-based undergraduate project with interest in research at that stage. But what I knew I wasn't interested in is lab-based research. It was an interesting degree. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it showed me I was not content to be a chemist. But what I did do during my undergraduate training was auxiliary nursing jobs in my holidays to fund my degree. And what I did love was working on the wards. And an incredibly inspirational nursing sister, Ursula, her name was, said, well, have you thought about doing a graduate entry nursing qualification? And I hadn't thought about it, but I did look at it and I loved it and got onto that postgraduate degree and was just involved right from the moment. I just loved the nursing degree. It wasn't something I'd thought of doing, but my chemistry probably gave me an interest in research. And so I got involved in research when I was an undergraduate student nurse.
Oh, right. So right from
the very beginning, was involved in, really excited about being involved in recruiting patients into trials, interested in what research was going on. And I think that's because of the science degree that I'd done and the skills that I'd got beforehand.
So when you finished your degree, did you then go and work as a staff nurse? What happened next?
So yes, so when I finished my degree, I worked in trauma orthopedics as a staff nurse. Then I moved down to be part of the helicopter emergency medical service in the Royal London. So I did my trauma nursing qualifications, and then from there moved up to Leeds to be part of an interesting post, which was a research and development practitioner that the chief nurse in Leeds at the time created, which was a joint post, mostly in practice development, so mostly helping people implement research findings. And that's where my interest in pain research was sparked, because I was helping people improve the pain management on wards, and it generated some interesting questions for me. I moved from that job to a community-based job doing the same sort of work for the Centre for Analysis for Nursing Practice with Leeds Beckett University. It was a joint appointment with Leeds Beckett and Leeds Community and Mental Health Trust, helping community nurses implement research findings. And that's where I did my PhD part-time.
So you had to go at doing research, you found it was for you, nursing research was for you, and then you decided to do your PhD. So how did that come about? Was it who funded your PhD?
Me.
So you funded it. So that's actually quite interesting for people who are watching this, is that you don't always go through.
No, I think certainly the fees I paid for myself. My trust supported me 1 day a week. And then toward the end, the last year, I got a Smith and Nephew Foundation fellowship to have a year out to do the write-up, because whilst I was able to do a lot of the thinking work, and I had some great supervision with Prof Josie Kloss in Leeds, I was able to do the thinking and the data collection, and I was supported to do that. When it came to the thinking time to write up and do the analysis, that was really difficult and challenging to do part-time. So I was lucky enough to get a small grant that funded a year's secondment full-time at the end to write up. So it was a little bit of, it wasn't fully funded by myself, but it was equally not a fully funded time out PhD.
Okay. What was the topic of your PhD? What was the title?
So My PhD looked at painful leg ulceration in community, and what I was interested to see was to identify the size of the problem, to look at if there were any effective treatments for patients with venous leg ulcers. So I did a Cochrane systematic review, which looked at topical treatments for pain and venous leg ulceration, and then I did a prevalence study and a longitudinal follow-up study to look at the impact of pain on venous leg ulceration healing.
And so when was that? How far through your nursing career did you do your PhD? How many years in were you approximately?
So I qualified, so I'm going to show my age now. So I qualified in 1989, 1990, and I registered for my PhD in 96, I think it is.
Okay. Yeah.
So I did my master's, so I did my, so I qualified in 1990, did my master's in nursing 92 to 94, and then did my PhD from about 96, 97. Part-time, and then got my PhD early 2000s. So after my PhD, I was lucky enough to get an NIHR postdoctoral fellowship, and that allowed me time to explore complex interventions in pain management.
So the way that you presented it is quite a sort of a smooth trajectory. So you did research in your first degree, you were interested in it in your nursing training, in your accelerated degree, and then you did your doctorate and your postdoctorate, and you managed to build a career in research looking at pain, and particularly non-pharmacological treatments. Was it entirely smooth? Has it been smooth, or have there been difficulties along the way? And if so, how have you overcome them?
Research, I would say, has been the pulse that has kept me interested in nursing. It's the thing that trying to improve the way that we do things, being curious, having opportunities to answer those questions has really helped me stay engaged with my nursing career, and has given me the sort of lifeblood of being able to give back well and care for patients well. Having said that, there is no clear pathway, and I had to search out the opportunities and almost create opportunities, self-fund, get small grants, and the things that have made that journey. So the journey has been convoluted in some ways. It's not clear. It isn't an obvious career, or it certainly hasn't been an obvious career path. And I think that 30 years in nursing, successful clinical academics will probably all say the same thing, that tenacity and being able to stay focused and keep your eye on the prize of getting your research in the spotlight. You've got to be resilient, and you've got to just stay focused, because otherwise nobody else is going to do it for you, and there isn't a clear path to say this is the next job I do, and nobody offers you a job. You've got to create the spaces. So the things that made a difference were seeing people going before me, knowing that that was possible. Mm-hmm. And having strong mentors. So I've mentioned Josie Kloss. Nikki Cullum was a mentor during my postdoc time. Really helped me work out that this was possible, and just finding really creative ways to make space for research. I think that's the thing that you have to do, is know that it is always possible to make space for research, and if you really want to do it. What I'd really like to see, though, is going forward that that's not the case, is that we shouldn't have to create space. There should be spaces that we can step into, and that's my passion going forward, is we allow people to be pulled through in clinical academic careers in a way that doesn't mean that they have to create their own spaces.
So tenacity is really important in mentorship, and recognising it won't be an entirely smooth path, but the difficulties can be overcome. What other advice would you give to people who are aspiring to be clinical academics? What would you say to the next generation of clinical academics?
I would say that my top tips are to find something that you feel passionate about and that you know is grounded in clinical practice and is going to make a difference. So in terms of the research focus, stay focused. Don't try, because there's a real temptation to think, oh well, here's another research job, but it's not really in the area that I'm interested in, but at least and there's a real challenge there to stay focused and make sure that you're building a program of research. Get really comfortable early on with rejection, because not everybody's going to like the way that you choose to answer a question. Not everybody's going to like what you do. However, be equally absolutely comfortable with lots of people criticizing your work, because ultimately academic contribution to your work always makes you stronger. And but it doesn't feel like that at the beginning. No. But the more that you're a clinical academic, the more you really appreciate people taking time and identifying the gaps and identifying the holes in your work and helping you build a stronger research project.
That's really good advice. And so how do you pick yourself up and dust yourself down when you've had rejection? What's a good way of doing that? Because the people that are watching this probably are very early on in thinking about research careers.
So don't take it personally. Generally, it's about the work and not you. And it's really easy to say, but much more difficult to do, in that actually when you've invested a huge amount of your thoughts, because we get paid for the thoughts that we have, and we get funding because of our thoughts, so it is really personal. But just because it's personal doesn't mean we need to take it personally. And so it's about separating the work from you. They're not criticizing you, they're criticizing the work. That's I have to keep repeating that even now. Acknowledging that it's okay to be hurt if you've been rejected by something, and just saying, actually, yeah, it's sad, or I'm disappointed, but disappointed shouldn't be dissuaded, because it's a hugely competitive field that we're working in. Funding is getting increasingly more competitive, and we wouldn't be doing our job well. The best description somebody said to me was, if you're shooting for a basket in basketball, both my girls played, my daughters play basketball, so it's a good analogy for me. If you're shooting for a basket in basketball and it doesn't go in, you don't think you're not a good basketball player. You just shoot again, and the more times you shoot at the basket, the more likely you are to be successful. And you need to think about grant submissions and publications and those sorts of things. It's another shot at the basket, and you just keep shooting at the basket.
There's definitely a strong thing about tenacity there and not giving up.
Yeah.
Is there, before we finish, is there anything else that you'd like to add that you wish you'd known, perhaps, or is there anything you might have done differently along the way?
I wished I'd known that the people who were in positions like professors and readers and other senior academics, I wish I'd known just how excited they are when early career researchers contact them. Because I, at the other side, was quite intimidated and thought, oh, they're very busy people. They wouldn't possibly want to know about my idea. And in reality, if you're in clinical practice and you're struggling with a particular question, it is great to hear that. And as senior academics, I don't know of an academic who isn't really interested in hearing from clinicians about particular research ideas or helping them build their research career. And most of the senior academics that I plucked up enough courage to when I was junior to contact were really, really pleased to hear from me and very open about helping me. So I wished I'd known that much earlier, because I'd been asking way more questions of them.
Yeah, and I think that's brilliant advice, and also being really courageous about networking and asking for someone's time, even if it's just a fraction of time. No, that's really good advice. So that's a very positive note to end on, I think. So thank you so much for talking to us today about your career. It's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you, Michelle.
No, thank you, Jane. That's been great. Thank you very much.